Thank you everyone for coming. I'm Dr. Steve Tashiro, and I'm going to be your host through this next period of time, during which we're going to discuss a matter that I assume is near and dear to your hearts, and that is your thyroid. I want to share a bit of information about my background. I've worked in the healthcare field now for 40 years. My first degree in health sciences is a master's in clinical nutrition. That was 1985 from the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut. And so for the first 15, 16 years, my main focus was helping people with chronic conditions, primarily through nutrition. And many of those people had thyroid disorders. More recently, 15 years ago, I graduated from chiropractic school. And now I'm part of a network of doctors around the country who practice what we refer to as neurometabolic care. What that means is we help people with chronic conditions by helping improve the function of their brain, that's the neural part, and also we help with body chemistry, that refers to the metabolic part. So we call it neurometabolic care. And I'd like you to write down this website address. It's lifechangingcare.com. This is the website that we use to share our patients' success stories. So you can log on to lifechangingcare.com and click on the Thyroid tab, and you can read stories from hundreds of other patients who got their lives back by using the methods that we're going to describe. The reason I do these talks is because I want to help more people get their lives back. I love working with thyroid disorders, and that's because when you have a thyroid problem, it affects your entire body. The thyroid is a microcosm, a picture of what's happening in your entire body, and it also is affected by what's happening in your entire body. So, Linda, if you have a thyroid problem, most likely you're not going to just have a problem here, you're going to have a problem that encompasses your entire body. And Carol, if you have a problem with a gland or organ like your liver, that's going to impact your thyroid. So your thyroid impacts every cell, organ, tissue in the body, but every organ in your body affects your thyroid. So it's fascinating to work with thyroid disorders because there's so many pieces to it. Now, at the end of the workshop, if what I've said makes sense and rings a bell with you, you'll have an opportunity to accept what we call an offer. And that's an offer to come in for an evaluation. And I guarantee it will be the most comprehensive, thorough health evaluation you've ever had. And that will be our way of determining if you're a good candidate to receive benefit through our program. Let me talk about the packet of information you have. This blue half sheet is for you to fill out and return if you'd like us to tell you about future workshops we do. We do a lot of workshops, not only on thyroid, but irritable bowel and sugar regulation problems, peripheral neuropathy. And so if you want to be informed about the future talks, just fill this out and leave it with Patricia at the front before you leave. You've already been working on the questionnaires that are included in this packet of papers that are stapled together. We'll be talking about the two questionnaires that you've been filling out, and I really encourage you to take notes. We'll be sharing a lot of diagrams. It'll be information that you'll want to refer to, and some of it is quite actionable. I'd like you to take out the packet of papers that shares success stories of other patients. I want to talk about one of these patients. Her name is Carolyn. So this is what she has to say. It was recommended to me 1 year ago by my MD to have my thyroid removed. Pretty drastic step. She didn't have that done. She goes on to say that Dr. Steve has saved my thyroid and has made me well. She says that my digestion is much better, I can exercise more, I have more energy, I feel better, and I've lost weight. Most of all, I do not have to have my thyroid removed. I'm sharing this story because it communicates a very, very important point. And that point is this. If your attitude is right, facts don't count. If your attitude is right, facts don't count. What that means is much of what we assume to be factual is just opinion. In this case, her medical doctor had an opinion that her thyroid needed to be removed. As it turns out, it wasn't an absolute truth or fact. It was just his opinion. And fortunately, her attitude was, I don't need to go that route. I'm going to do whatever it takes to heal without having my thyroid removed. And she found the way. It emphasizes how critically important our beliefs are relative to our health, not just our health, but our whole life. She was able to step out of a certain constraint or box of belief and thinking. And as a result of that, she was able to experience success, the goal that she wanted. As we go through this presentation, much of what I'm sharing will bump up against what you've accepted to be true and what you think is true based on what you've read and what you've heard through mainstream healthcare. Now, while the information I'm going to share with you comes from the most current leading edge research, it has not yet hit mainstream healthcare. So this information is not mainstream practice. And so if you've been going to mainstream healthcare for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, being told the same thing, getting the same results, then you're going to have to step out of that box of thinking if you want a different experience. Here's another pithy truism. If you want your life to change, then you are going to have to change things in your life. It should be an obvious statement. And what I find is that the people that attend these workshops are sick and tired of what they've been getting through mainstream medicine. That's why they come here. And so they're already in the process of stepping outside of that belief paradigm. But this is a forewarning that much of what we'll talk about will be new in that regard. And if it challenges your beliefs, that's great. That's the whole intent and purpose. No one would argue with the statement that we are in a crisis in our country. Not just economic, but we are in a healthcare crisis. We are at an important crossroads. More specifically, each of you is at a crossroads in your life relative to your health. That's why you're here. And we can represent that crossroads by this X. This is where you are right now. You're looking down this path, and the path has a fork. And the fork goes both to the right and to the left. And if you elect to go down the path to the left, this is what you're buying into. The path to the left, by the way, represents traditional mainstream healthcare in our country. This is what our healthcare system has produced, according to the Newsroom 2012. In the world, our country is number one in per capita average person medication use, so that by the time a person goes to the nursing home, he or she is on 10 to 12 medications. One reason for this is that Big Pharma now has developed and now is marketing successfully what are called lifestyle medications. 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the medications being taken were being taken for specific acute illnesses. And once the illness passes, you stop taking the medication. But now, they want us to take and buy for the rest of our lives medications for chronic conditions. British Medical Journal states that 95% of chronic conditions cannot be managed successfully by medication. Yet that's the bill of goods that we've been sold and that we're buying into. So number one in per capita medication use. Number one in carbon dioxide emissions. Number one in the rate of deaths for people aged 0 to 35. And we're number 24 in the world for longevity, the average lifespan, which right now is only 78 years of age. Many third world countries are higher on this list than we are. In other words, they're doing better than we are. We're number 72 in healthcare performance, meaning how effective is our healthcare system in delivering health in all of its ramifications. And we're number 74 in stopping preventable deaths. So take that fork to the left, and this is what you're buying into. By the way, that road is washed out. On the other hand, if you go down the right turn, you'll have an opportunity to experience the ways and means by which optimal health is possible. And it's not by doing any of the things that has produced this. So again, totally different way of thinking. Okay, so if you have a small capacity to absorb and retain information, what I'm going to put up next is the single most important concept I want you to walk away with. Hopefully you take away more, but if there's only one thing you take away this. Because this is at the core of that information I just put on the board. So write this down. Okay, my body can heal itself. This is a key understanding and awareness on the part of we who practice what's called alternative or natural health care. We recognize that your body has an incredible ability to heal itself, provided that imbalances and blockages to its natural expression of health are removed. You all have experienced this. You've injured yourself, cut yourself, and even if you didn't put any medication on the cut, it heals from the inside out. So there is a innate healing power or even intelligence with the body that we in alternative care acknowledge and honor and respect. And my goal and our goal is to work in harmony with this life principle. Contrast that to the traditional view in mainstream medicine, which is that your body is more like a machine than a living entity. And like all machines, your body is going to run down over time, and eventually parts will have to be taken out and replaced, whether it's your knees or your hips or your heart or whatever it is. Just like a piece of equipment, like a backhoe. It's mechanical, and as you use it more and more, pieces and parts wear out, have to be replaced. And that's how the human body is viewed. A whole different mindset, a whole different way of thinking to what I recognize as being the truth, and that is that your body has the ability to heal itself. Now, there are some caveats to that. Certain health patterns need to be in place if your body is to heal itself. So we're going to write that next. Write this down. 80% of your immune system is in your gut. So for your body to heal itself, you have to have a healthy gut. And we'll talk in depth about your gut. Then on the other side, write healthy brain. And under that, draw a circle. And below the circle, draw this trunk or stem. And then draw these rectangles crossing that stem. And then between the rectangles, draw these single lines. Okay, so this is your brain. Your brain produces electrical energy. These messages travel down the spinal cord. And then these rectangles represent vertebrae in your spine. And the nerves that exit between the vertebrae, which are extensions of your spinal cord, go to every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. So if you don't have a healthy brain whose signals are flowing freely through the nerves, then you can't have optimal health. So I talked about your body healing itself if we remove imbalances and barriers. So if your brain is under-functioning, then it's very hard to have optimal health. So we'll talk in more detail about how the brain affects your ability to heal. Now let's draw another diagram here underneath. Start with a circle on the left side of your page, and then draw a horizontal line straight across with an X at the end of the line. We call this diagram the runway of health. This represents your life. At this end, this is when your life ends. This is when it began. Now what I want you to do is draw a vertical line through this horizontal line at a point that represents your current age. I said that the average lifespan in the U.S. now is 78. I know some of you will live longer. Maybe some of you won't live that long. But let's say if your lifespan is 78, draw a vertical line on this horizontal line representing where you are now on that spectrum. This is me. That's kind of scary. I'm 66 right now. I know I'm going to live longer than this. Everything to the left of that vertical line is what has happened in the past. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Whether it's been good or bad, that is history. What you have total control over, based on the decisions you make and the actions you take, is your life to the right of that vertical line. And here's my hope for you. My hope for you is that you will make the choices and decisions that allow the rest of your life to be the best of your life, rather than the choices that take you in this downward spiral. There is a term that I think about quite a bit, and that term is mysticism. Peyton Manning, you all know Peyton Manning, I assume. So when he was taken by the Broncos out of free agency, there was a lot of commentary about him and his approach to playing football. And one comment by Merrill Hodge, he's a ESN sports analyst. Peyton Manning is someone who takes his work in his hand, and through very careful preparation, he ensures his success. You never hear Peyton Manning blaming other players, the coaching staff, the field, the fans for failures, because his work ethic is so immense. Mysticism is the belief that our experience in life is not the result of our doing. It's a belief that our life is being controlled, our experience is controlled by forces outside ourselves, whether it's the government, the insurance company, the medical profession, our family members, our boss at work, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a huge, huge mindset that so many people have that allows them to escape responsibility for what their experience is. And I'm talking about this because it has such an immediate impact on whether the rest of your life is this or that. So again, it's your decisions and the way you think that determines what's going to happen between now and the rest of your life. So again, the purpose for this information is to give you accurate information which you can then use to make informed decisions. Okay, so now let's talk specifically about the thyroid. We're going to talk about what are called thyroid pathways. We have to continually ask ourselves who we are listening to in terms of the different aspects of our life. We're talking about health today. And it's a true statement that we have to listen to people who have created or accomplished what we want in our life. Health and relationship or finance, it definitely applies to the area of health. So I assume that since you're here for thyroid information, that you've been going to practitioners for advice, treatment for thyroid. If that's the case, ask your thyroid practitioner to draw out this pathway for you. Unless a practitioner understands the pathways by which the thyroid functions, there's no way there can be success in helping with the thyroid disorder. And as we go through this, I'll talk about the mainstream health approach to assessment and treatment of thyroid disorders. It should be obvious and clear how limited and narrow that approach really is. So at the very top here, write brain/hypothalamus. Your brain, as I said earlier, controls your entire body by sending nerve signals down the spinal cord and out the nerves. A part of your brain called the hypothalamus, which is kind of in the middle and lower down in the brain, is critical to the function of your thyroid. And that's because hormonal signals from the hypothalamus are what turns on your pituitary, which turns on your thyroid. So draw a line down from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. Then to the side of that vertical line, draw TRH, thyrotrophin releasing hormone. So that's the hormone that the hypothalamus releases to activate the pituitary. But it can't do that if it doesn't have enough serotonin and dopamine. Those are two neurotransmitters. And it can't do that if it does not have adequate fuel, represented by the F, and activation, represented by the A. So you have to have a healthy brain if you're going to have a healthy TRH signal going to the pituitary. And I want to talk a bit about activation. Activation is a term that we use in functional neurology to describe how the brain and other neurological tissues are maintained in a state of healthy function. Activation simply means movement or activity that stimulates the nervous system and the brain. You've probably heard that when astronauts go into space, their brain volume actually shrinks. And that's because they don't have the stimulation to the muscle spindle cells in their muscles or the mechanoreceptors in their joints created by gravity. So they're up there in a weightless environment and there's not this stimulation from gravity. So their brains actually shrink. Well, that principle holds true for all of us. So as people age, they tend to become less active. And when they do that, the process of deterioration neurologically accelerates. So movement, activity, function keeps the brain healthy. That's what activation refers to. So if you got a bad brain, you're going to have problems activating your pituitary. The pituitary then sends another hormonal signal down to the thyroid, and that hormonal signal is thyroid-stimulating hormone, abbreviated TSH. And the TSH prods the thyroid to produce the thyroid hormones T4 and T3. 93% of the hormone produced by the thyroid is T4, 7% is T3. It's important for you to know that T4 is a non-functioning form of the hormone. T3 is the form that actually turns on the DNA in every cell in your body. So somehow we've got to get this non-functional T4 converted into the functional T3 form. But let's back up a bit. Your pituitary sends its hormonal signal to the thyroid. The thyroid is supposed to make the hormones, but it can't unless it has adequate iodine, tyrosine, and a very critical enzyme, TPO. That's an abbreviation for thyroid peroxidase. So what thyroid peroxidase does is it sticks the iodine onto the tyrosine. Tyrosine is an amino acid, and then it joins together different molecules of iodine with tyrosine